this is Patrick at the Mad Bros Media Zoom show on podcasts. And I'm here today with David. We haven't seen him in a long time. Shout out to David. And our very special guest, Diane Franklin. All right. Yay. How you doing today, Diane?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
That's good. We were honored to have you. We don't have very many 80s babes on the show. We need to get more 80s babes like you on the show.
See, I got my 80s babes earrings on too.
Oh, sweet.
You don't remember? 80s babe.
So how have you been doing through the COVID? Have you got your shots?
Yes, finally. Yeah, I got both of them. Thank goodness.
Good.
I'm glad we were able to do it. I mean, I can't believe it's been a year.
Yeah.
More, I mean, we're all going to look back at this and go, wow, that was insane. I think everyone's still recovering or sort of still dealing. I mean, it's still happening. It's just crazy, but all is good. All is good.
It's good. Yeah. And so I took a look today and I was reading the book. This is one of two books, right? I know that you have a second book. So what's in the second book? This is a definitive book of Diane. It's called The Excellent Adventures of the Last American French Exchange Babe of the 80s, which is really good. So what's the difference between this one and the second one?
And this one, and by the way, this is the excellent curls of the Last American French Exchange of the Baby. So there's the curls. It's funny you say this. Is that actually, I just recently, someone sent me a review of the book you have. And what was interesting was, the first book is like, I wrote because I thought at a certain point, I mean, people don't know who I am. I didn't do publicity when I was younger, and I've only just started doing a lot of publicity in the past few years. But when I was younger, people always how did you get there? Like, what was it like? And I really think, I have a lot of performances that I did, but a lot of people didn't connect them. They didn't go, oh, what, my gosh, the girl who was Last American Virgin was also in Better Off Dead, was also in Bill and Ted's, was also in Amityville, the connections, often that happens with actors because you play such different characters. So when I did the first book, I thought, okay, I'm going to explain what, how not only my career as an actress, but how it happened. And I was a lower middle class girl from immigrant parents, and I became a movie star. And how does that happen? And so I really wanted to walk the audience through that journey and what it took and my experience of it. And that, not every actor's life has to end in horror, because it does mean a lot of actors wind up, having really hard lives. And I'm not saying that it's easy, but I think that when you read that book, you're going to get an idea. And this is what this reviewer said, it was just like, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of it. It's interesting, actors, you always look at actors and are they pretty or do they have talent? But so much of it is perseverance. And so much of it is not giving up. And so much of it is, believing in yourself and, really, it has to really come from within, and so there's so many actors that I've seen who are incredibly talented or incredibly beautiful, or they have something to say. And there's so many different kinds of actors who are like this, but a lot of them get very hard on themselves, and it's a tough life. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So you may want to be an actor, but you may not want the life. It's a different life. So you have to be comfortable with freelance life. You have to be you have to be self-starter. You have to be somebody who is resilient. You have to be really good at handling people. So there's a lot of things of that. And to start, I started my career at 10 years old. I got a lot of practice before I wound up just doing it by myself on my own, because my parents were there to support me. Mind you, my parents knew nothing about the entertainment business. But anyway, so that book is really, really good for people who have dreamed of being an actor. What's it like? People who love the 80s. I mean, it's great. I have chapters on every movie that I did and in-depth stories about it. And also, if you are an actor or you want to act, it's essential. It's an essential thing, especially for young women, for sure. Absolutely. So I did that book and I thought, well, okay, I don't know if I'm going to do any other books. It really was sort of like, I just wanted to get my story out there. And And then, because I've done a lot of cult films too. It's like I have done a wide range of things in my career. It's not all Pollyanna. So I think that that's a lot of times actresses don't talk about things. They'll talk about one type of film, but they won't talk about others. So I have a nice wide range of what it is like to be an actor or an actress. But the second book, I realized when I finished the first book, it suddenly hit me, and all like so many things happen organically. I realized, wait a minute, I was the first actress who brought curly hair into the 80s. And I'm not saying I was the first actress with curly hair. There was, obviously so many other actresses before me, but I was the first one who brought it into as a teen who was beautiful. Like it was seen as beautiful. And what I mean to say is that in the 70s and before, curly hair was not considered something you wanted. It was really something that was, people stayed away. Oh God, let's make the homely girl curly, or in like characters, like let's make the ugly girl have curly hair, or the awkward girl, or, it was not considered the beauty. And I was looking for that curly haired girl to be a role model. I mean, I remember being a kid and going, why can't the curly haired girl be pretty, Mm-hmm. So when I did the film, The Last American Virgin, that was the first film where a teenager was considered the dream girl with curly hair.
Yeah.
And that was unusual. So so that's what this book is about, because I really, if you get it, there's like, it shows like it started with Last American Virgin, but it exploded into, and you can see like my career, I straightened my hair before. But Virgin was the first film that curly hair took off. And that's when like Jennifer Beals and Jennifer Grey, everybody started getting perms. Yeah. It was and I remember thinking, what is going on? Wait a minute. And I was getting a lot of leads because my look was different. But I will say this, it also opened the door for ethnic beauty, dark curly hair. Because before that was very blonde, straight hair. So I just wanted to share that with the audience that, fashion trends come and go. I'm very happy today that there's an embracing of all kinds of beauty. I mean, really, truly, that's what actresses are looking for, people are looking for. Like, why can't my version of beauty be in or seen as pretty? So this is such an important part of our society today that we need to embrace all kinds. And then you have your own and you rock it, and you rock it with confidence, whether, whatever color hair, whatever kind of hair, whatever kind of body shape, and it's your confidence. So I remember when I was in the 70s, I really didn't feel that confident because my look was not socially accepted. And then in the 80s, when it was, that was very gratifying, and I'm sure it was gratifying for Sarah Jessica Parker and, Amy Irving. She was like the first one I was looking for, that I was looking up to her. But even in when she was in Carrie, she played the bad girl. She wasn't necessarily the good girl, and she wasn't the main focus. So the curly hair did not hit in the 70s, it hit in the 80s. So anyway, but I thank Amy Irving for being my inspiration to start, because it really was a big thing for socially in America. And then it became an American hit. Like everyone was like, I want curly hair.
Yeah,
I was like,
well, I was about to say all the male rock bands got all curly hair. They got long curly hair.
Right.
And I was thinking too, every dance or prom I've been to, and I've been maybe 3 or 4, all the girls were all dressed up, but their hair was all curly. It was the first time I seen all the girls with long hair. Oh, your hair's all curly. I mean, it was really curly.
Right? Really tight curls. And that was actually this is natural. I mean, that's what it is. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It is funny that, you're right. Like, as even for you guys, like your memory of like, that was then the the hot style, the hot
Yeah.
looking. It was like most fashionable. And you could have these girls with straight hair and they're like tightening it. And you're like, what are you doing? I mean, beautiful blonde straight are gorgeous, you know?
Yeah.
But it was just something like, wow, this curly hair became in fashion. But I also want to say that I am now writing my third book.
Oh.
And that book is going to have come out this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it is going to be about
Better Off Dead.
Better Off Dead. Yep. So yeah, so I'm writing a third one, and I decided that I had people at conventions, and they would come to see me and sign autographs, and I actually have my original Better Off Dead coat. So I'd bring it to the conventions, as you have, and people try it on. So I said to them, well, you should wear this coat. It's a collector's item. It's memorabilia. I mean, it's actually from the film. It's a piece of history. Mm-hmm. So then somebody said to me, you know what? You should make a book and put everybody's picture in it. And I went, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Yeah. So I actually started doing it. And from it, I've gotten interviews from Savage Steve Holland, Amanda. So I've got a whole bunch of people contributing. So it's going to be a really cool piece. And so if you love Better Off Dead, it will be like a tribute book. It'll be, yeah. So you guys know it's going to happen. There you go.
It was almost kind of like the Rachel of the 80s, the Rachel haircut of the 80s, except, I mean, that was like a haircut this is your natural style. And yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, because I don't know if you recall that there was also what stands out too is that actress in Uncle Buck. The daughter in Uncle Buck, she had really the one that was defiant of the parents and defiant of John Candy. She had really big curls too, and it kind of reminded me of your hairstyle. But yeah, I just have to say that, like, especially in Better Off Dead, I mean, your hair, I mean, it was so beautiful.
Merci beaucoup, it's very nice. Very. Yeah. Short curly hair. That's really cool of you to say. And yeah, I mean, haircuts somewhat define periods of American life. I mean, like, we go back and we're like, I mean, like, even like, look at that, like, just so like, I mean, I have these things here. It's really cool to see. It just takes you back. It takes you back. And they will come again. That's the other part too. It will rotate, right? So it'll go straight, and yes, a really good cut will come in. But I think it just is different kinds of beauty. Like, we're just trying to like define beauty in so many different ways. So but I'm glad you said that. Yeah, Rachel's cut. In fact, actually, I think that's who the actress is, Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston, yeah.
I think we're born on the same day.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah, isn't that weird? So a curly hair thing, like, right, and straight hair, like the hair thing, influential. Weird. I think we're born on the same day.
You guys were destined to change the world. You guys were destined to change the world.
Yeah, in our own way.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was reading your book again today, and you had a little bit of reference to Brooke Shields as an influence. Who else is one of your influences as an actress?
Oh, well, I'm just going to share some just sweet information. Okay. There were other. I'll get into that, but I just want to tell you, I just connected with an actress named Lisanne Falk. Mm-hmm. And she was in, I think, Mean Girls. Mm-hmm. And she was also a model. And so it was the time of Brooke Shields and Lori Loughlin and Lisa Shue. And like, we were all kind of acting and modeling together. And I just reconnected with her. And it's one of those interesting things where it was almost like the relationships that we had, we would see each other often on auditions. It was like being in high school. It was like, you go to your friend like, oh my gosh, how are you? Like, you haven't seen them in a long time. But there were a very small number of actresses who started as kid models or, sort of thing, and then kept going. And that is what's really fascinating about Brooke to me. Obviously she opened the door with her dark eyebrows. Then I got in, and Lori Loughlin and Elizabeth Shue, and all of us followed really Brooke because she hit so hard in the late 70s. And so Brooke helped us. So that's the kind of interesting that's different than, and there are other actors, today, I'm sure there are actors, you get the door opened by other actors. I know, like, my daughter is a comedian. And she doesn't do stand-up comedy, but she writes comedy, and she does a comedy with her comedy partner, Sydney Heller, and they are on TikTok now. If you look up Sid and Olivia on TikTok, or you go to Snapchat in the show Apocalypse Goals. But they followed Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. So like they opened the door, and now because there's some kind of recognition, you know, like there has to be some kind of an association with people. Oh wow, yeah, I know them. Oh, now this is sort of the not new version, but it is familiar. So actors help other actors, and I love that. I mean, that is just a gift, and we never talk about that. You know, we always talk about how much we admire actors, but we don't talk about how some actors helped other actors, whether they meant to, you know, whether they gave them a break, or whether they are just a great influence. So my other actors, I have two actors that definitely influenced my career. One was Marlo Thomas, because I think that I would not have been an actress at all had I not seen her when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, I think more in the 60s, of the show That Girl.
Yeah.
She had dark curly hair, a dark like a flip, but she was the only dark-haired actress that I remember and she played an actress. And she had this very upbeat kind of bubbly energy, which I identified with, as you can see, a little energy. And she was a role model to me. She, you know, years later, like I paint, and I did a painting where I did like a painting of us together, like casual, like doing nails or something, and she signed it. I have this painting.
Oh, sweet.
It's so amazing, you know, but I didn't meet her. I knew someone who knew her, but she will never know how much she influenced me as a child. I mean, literally, that's before 10 years old. And then by seeing her, it made me feel like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be an actress. I want to be on TV, or I want to be, you know, in that world. So it is very cool. And then in my teen years, probably a little bit later, Meryl Streep. And her work in Sophie's Choice was really what got me to do more dialects, because that wasn't happening really, or at least maybe people didn't admit they were doing dialects. Maybe it was all like, you know, you just believe that person really was from that place, and it wasn't in the internet. But now we can look up things and go, oh, that person's doing a dialect, and they're, you know, they don't normally speak that way. But I think that's acting. So when I see the dialect, I go, oh, well, that's acting, you know? So when I saw her in that film, I was like, oh, I really believed she was that person. As people say to me, you know, sometimes, I really believed you were French. And I'm like, that's the best compliment, you know, it's the best.
You know, it's so interesting today. There's a lot of actors out there, and they have American accents. And then when you're here and being interviewed, they have English or Australian accents. So they really totally fool you when you're watching them on TV, and then you hear them on an interview. It's like, oh my God, you really fooled me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. Yes, you know, talking, you know, so, you know, they're like, they've gotten that dialect, and I actually specialize in that. So like my thing is like, I can do that. Like I can teach people who have a dialect to talk like without the dialect. But then all of a sudden, yes, they talk, you know, talk with their dialect, and like, oh yes, I loved playing that American, you know, like I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So yeah, that's great.
I've heard it's a little harder for them to do the R's sometimes. I know that they have to get around the R's mostly.
Yeah, and American R's are like, I mean, look, we have within our country, and this is every country itself, you know, some way you can hit the R's really hard, you know, or, you know, we can miss those R's completely, you know, and not to say the R's at all, or, you know, like, or, you know, or like, oh my gosh, like you can say your R's like, you know, very forward. It changes depending upon where you live and your status and all that stuff. So it's exciting. I mean, I look at it as, to me, acting is a creative wonderland. And I never felt like, you know, I grew out of it, you know, and you have to be real, you have to be connected, you have to study. Like, I just have that, I look at it, I think like a scientist, you know, I think, and I enjoy it. Like I really try to break it down, and then I have to feel it. So you go from your thinking, analyzing it to feeling it. And then that has to do with your life, you know, your experiences. You have to open up. And not everybody, like I said, not everybody can or wants to reveal themselves, show vulnerability, you know. So actors out there, you know, you got your work cut out for you.
Yeah. There's a question that the viewer sent me. Is it more difficult to get into acting now than it has when you first got into the show business?
I am so glad this person asked this question. Thank you for whoever asked this question.
Her name's Jennifer. We'll
Jennifer.
put her on the.
Oh yeah, Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer.
Yeah.
All right. So acting is easier and harder. How is that possible? Two answers. Back in the 80s, you were not able to put yourself on TV by yourself, on the internet by yourself. You know, the only way someone could see you perform would be if you got in a play. People didn't really create their own content then as much. So it was much harder in a way to get hired. In a sense, like someone actually had to hire you to be seen as an actor. And when you did get hired, well, you know, maybe you wanted to play one part, but they want to see you as this. So it was it was harder to get in, but once you got in, people knew they could see what you did and they trusted your high standard because you you really had to like have a high standard to compete with other people. And, you know, it was, in that way, it was like once you sort of got in, it was a little bit easier to keep getting work. But in a sense, you were still had to keep your standard high. You had to stay on it. You didn't just go, oh, well, you know, now I'm an actor. No, it doesn't happen that way. You had to constantly put out 100% to do it. And in fact, the other thing is you couldn't necessarily do anything else. And people didn't want you to know if you did anything else. You were an actor, you were an actor. So you had to find some way that you could make money that was, people just wanted you to know you as one thing. I'm an actor, that's it. They didn't want to know if you directed. They didn't want to know if you worked as a waiter, nothing. You were just an actor. And because I started so young, I only acted. That was my thing. But I did all kinds of acting, commercials, soap opera, theater, film. That's how I kept I make a living during the time. But that's not usually the case. You know, if you start later, you know, you're going to have that night job to be able to go on those auditions during the day. And by the way, that night job will teach you how to play that character. So don't knock it. If you're waitering at night, you're going to be able to play a waiter. I love that. So get a lot of different jobs to experience what it's like. I think that's great training, actually.
Yeah.
To be real, you know, experience different jobs, what it's like, those feelings, what people go through. But today, today, the good thing is you can create your own content. You can get a computer. You can record your own, yourself doing any scene. I mean, you could do a scene that's already been in a film and do that as an audition. You could write your own material and showcase yourself in the best way. You can bring your friends in and create your own show. You have nothing stopping you from creating. Yeah, you may not be able to pay people, but there are other people who want to create as well because they want to showcase for themselves as well. So the key would be, I guess, to network with people who can help you, or you do your own thing. Now, the other part of it is, you know, YouTube and, you know, you're having your own internet show and becoming like, or TikTok or having this. These are vehicles. When I was a kid, I didn't have that vehicle. I couldn't get that information. So take advantage of the freedom that we have on the internet. And I mean, honestly, if I told you a year from now, guess what? Everything on the internet, we have to pay for then. I mean, literally, like you won't be able to do a free show. Yeah. You won't be able to have that. What if I told you that? How different would you look at your life as an actor right now? You'd be like, oh my gosh, I got to get this stuff done now. That's what I'm telling you. It's like, don't take for granted that this is going to be going on forever. Because guess what? From the 80s, think of all the changes. We didn't even have, in the 80s, you couldn't watch a show twice. We didn't have the VHS. I mean, before VHS, let's say 70s. We didn't have maybe 60s. We didn't have the VHS. You
had reruns, right? You had to wait till the summertime reruns to watch them again.
Yeah. If you missed that show because you were having dinner, you were in the dark and everybody talked about it. Oh, I saw that show. Did you see what happened? You were like, ah. So life changes so much. Really take advantage of what you have. Don't sit back. And that's where the younger generation doesn't understand that. They don't see that yet. Life changes, and it changes every, few years. I mean, can change every year, but it's like, even we went from beta to VHS to DVDs to Blu-ray to streaming, so it's changing. And I feel incredibly fortunate that my work is still can be remembered. People can look up the films I did and they can watch them. I mean, when I was growing up, that wasn't possible, insane. I love technology and I love it. But as an actor, yes, it's harder because you have to, you do everything. But on the other hand, today, it's not shameful to have many careers. I'm a writer, director, actor, author, writer, singer, dance, whatever. Now now people are going, oh, wow, this person has a lot of talents. So you just have to hone in on what you love to do the most and go after it. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for somebody to tell you you can do it. You must start from yourself going, I need to do this. I am not going to go through my life without doing this. And the people who like what I do, great. And if you don't like it, well, then you can go watch someone else. That's fine. You're not going to please everyone in the world. There's always going to be people who, love what you do. And then there are people who will be like, it's okay. And then there are people like, oh, forget it, So you don't have to chase that. It'll be great when you find people who appreciate your work. So, and again, you are the generation now. And then when you're like around my age, people will be like, oh, wow, remember when they did that work? So don't hesitate about putting it out there. Okay? That's my advice.
That's good.
Now I have to ask this. In your book, you mentioned 80s babes, Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy, which hence brings the question, did you audition for any of the John Hughes films?
Okay, so I auditioned for 16 Candles. And I auditioned, I don't know if I got a call back for 16 Candles, but I definitely was in the later auditions when they looked at a lot of people. And I auditioned for Karate Kid. I was screen tested for that. They were like, it was.
So you auditioned with Elizabeth Shue as well, since you were in that small group.
Myself, Elizabeth, and one other girl. It was between the three of us, which was wild. That was great. And I'm glad, Elizabeth, I'm glad she did it. She's great. I love her. I really love her. I miss her. I would love to talk with her.
I wish she would do cons, but she's probably still too not kind of big, I guess, because she was Oscar nominated. I don't know. Maybe she'll change her heart. Her kids might say, hey, come do cons. Or if you talk to her, hey, come do cons, they're fun.
Oh, they are. They are amazing. Everybody's got their own tempo. I will say this, which is fascinating about cons, conventions, signing conventions. As an actor, that used to be, again, in the 80s, the graveyard. If you're not doing well, that's the graveyard for actors. So it was, and the reason why I'm saying that is because it was a time where, again, things changed. You didn't want to be seen so close to one-on-one with people. And so people usually did it very, very late in life. And I don't know, it was just it was kind of frowned upon. But again, I saw it and I went, oh my gosh, this is a golden opportunity. What an experience to, meet people. I was definitely hesitant when I started, but then when I went, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exciting. And I started seeing other actors that I liked. So that made it very exciting for me. I was like, oh my gosh, there's Karen Black and Muriel Hemingway and Cloris Leachman. And, people Cloris Leachman. I'm so glad I got to meet her, actually just work with her on something too recently. But what a gift. when people show up and do this.
Yeah.
Well, then it became a money-making thing. It became like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden younger people started seeing, wait a minute, this is not just for old thing. This is fun. This is fun if it's a horror convention. This is fun if it's a comic book convention. This is fun if it's a celebrity convention, because these are the memories that we all were raised with. So every generation has their con that they will love. And I'm telling you that, you know, you can buy things in your life, but going to a con is like, you can't, to buy that experience where you are meeting a memory of your life is unforgettable. For the rest of your life, you're going to be like, wow, I actually met that person, or wow, that was so cool. I grew up watching them, and now I met, you know, whoever that is, you know, Marsha Brady from the Brady Bunch, you know, like, and whoever it is that was your crush, or was, you know, you grew up watching. Very exciting. So with Elizabeth, I feel like, I hope that she gets it. I know, like, you know, eventually actors start to do it, and they, you know, truly, we are not actors who've acted their whole life. We are not anything without the fans. We really aren't, you know. It takes both sides. So I think that I speak highly of the conventions, and the fans are very respectful. And if a fan's not respectful, guess what? There's security.
Oh yeah.
They don't, right?
Yep.
They got to leave.
But,
so if you haven't been to a convention, you got to do it at least once in your life. And if you have, like, you understand, you know, it's awesome.
Oh yeah. And the smaller the cons, if you see like a handful of people, go to those cons. Like, you know, like there's comic cons out here in Tacoma and Seattle, and like the Crypticon Seattle is really more family oriented. And like a lot of people have said, and I've said, it's so fan oriented, because it's not only just a bunch of people just hanging out because they love horror and they love the people that come. Is that you actually can sit and talk with, you know, your heroes and people you loved watching in movies. Like you were there, you were sitting down, you were talking to everybody. You got to have them wear the coat, and it's not like where sign go by like some of the other cons I've been to.
Well, that's because if
it's so much refreshing to go to a con like, say, like Crypticon Seattle. It's go so homely.
Smaller cons. He's right, because the big cons, there's too many people, and then the person just has to sign it and go. But if there's a little smaller, but look at the people who are there, and oh, it's so much fun. And I'm actually going to do a con in. I'm attending a con in Virginia. Cares for Scares. Scares in I think end of July, early August in Virginia. And then I'm supposed to go to Florida in October, Orlando, I think. And then I'm supposed to go to London, I think in October, for a convention. It's like a gallery event convention thing. And then I'm supposed to go to Mexico for 80s.
Oh, wow.
80s, well, 80s in the Sand. If you love the 80s, people.
Sweet.
Check it out. It's a week-long vacation with famous celebrities and famous bands playing. I think they might have last I heard, Billy Idol was going to be there.
Oh wow.
And seriously, like, you're so close. It's not a huge event. They won't bring a lot of people. They only have a limited amount of people because they want more of the interaction. But he's just one of the bands. They've had Berlin, Motels, you know, oh my gosh, like Bret Michaels was there.
Oh wow.
Oh my goodness, my brain. There's so many. Anyway, go check out 80s in the Sand. All right?
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Now, you've also produced 4 short films. Do you plan to be like a director? Do you plan to direct a short film or a feature film someday?
Well, here's the thing. I have been directing a lot. And I've actually written some musicals, and I write a lot of I write things. I don't, like, I do that, but like I do it. That's not it's not my forte. Like, I mean, I'm writing my book and I like that. But I would say that what I'm thinking of eventually someday is maybe writing a feature film and either, directing it or acting with it, or maybe have my daughter direct it. And so, I can see that definitely happening. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'd love to do, but I have the ability to direct, but I love teaching. And that's like my main thing. I think I love teaching students, and I teach, I teach probably, till about 20. I mean, I can teach anyone, but my forte is young people, probably up to like 25 or so, like a 20. I just like, because they're coming into the business and I know what that's like, and bringing them in. But I'm open, I teach privately, I teach in classes. So yeah, that's a good question. No one's ever asked me that about directing. I've actually directed musicals. I just directed Annie Jr. and I've directed Shrek and I've directed Lion King. And so it's kind of funny that I've actually also directed musicals, but not, but yeah, films, that's an interesting thing. So we'll see about that.
I know you were talking about your daughter earlier. She's directed you in a film or two. Well, when you first worked with her, like on a film she directed, did you give her any advice to direct actors? And what was she like as a director?
Well, it's interesting because when she was really little, we'd play a lot of games, and we would create characters, acting characters, and I kind of would say to her, like, I set it up and I would say to her, like, okay, do you want to make a movie? Like, what's it about? Where does it take place? Whatever. And I would ask her a bunch of questions. And so she sort of filled in the blanks, and then she kind of created this. I think a very big part of her creating stories was that she studied improv. She did a lot of improv and acting, so she understood about characters. But I will say this, it was very funny. She did this little short called Humanized, and we did a scene before she directed me. She did a scene and I was kind of helping her, and she did the scene and I said, it was really funny. I went, bullshit. And she was like, and I said, I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. Bullshit. And then it was like she did it, like she nailed it, and it's kind of funny that when like you say something like that, people just, it doesn't matter who you are, you pull yourself together and you go, wait a minute, that maybe that was bullshit, you don't know. So it was hilarious. So after that, I think she can commit like nobody's business. She can, just amazing. But I'll say another funny thing before we did that film, when she did a short film with it's called The Cat That Looked at the King, and it's on YouTube, and she was 7 years old, I think 7 or 8, I think 7. And she played a young Jane Banks. And this was before we had any acting training, but she's always she had a photographic memory. So she was acting with Julie Andrews. Literally, and she had to talk with an English dialect as well. And Julie Andrews said her dialect was imperfect. It was like, oh my gosh, right? So I'm flipping out because I know who Julie Andrews is. She has no idea who Julie Andrews is because she's 7. So she did this scene, and I had never trained her, and she had never really even seen any of my movies. Like she hadn't seen anything. But she did this scene where she comes. She had to hit her mark, and she had to start, and then she had to do her line and all this stuff. And so, all of a sudden the director says action. She hits her mark. She does her line. She whatever, and then he says cut, and she stays in her position and waits until the director says, go or stop, or just like stop. And it was like I never taught her how to be in a scene, how to listen, take direction. I never taught her that. So when I saw her take direction, and just like on a dime, like just being able, okay, start acting now, stop acting, okay, and I'm not going to move until he says cut. Like it just took me on my breath away. And when I heard her do the dialect, it brought me back to Bill and Ted's. I was like, some things are just, it seems genetic. Like, did she just felt it and gets it? So that was very gratifying for me. And so now comes the fun part. So then she directed her first film on her own, basically, is a short called The Adventures of Lass. And I played a character who was like an old grandmother character, which is hilarious because I wasn't even acting again yet. Like I had stopped acting and I was there to raise my kids. And when she's like, "Oh, Mom, I need you to play this," I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she directs me, and it was hilarious because she was like a ruthless director. She's like, "Okay, let's go. Let's move it. Okay, like, get your line. Okay, can you get your line?" Like, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, okay, sure." Like, she was so like on top of it, and so like just she knew. I don't know. She had her standards. She has softened up over the years. She's not as ruthless, but it was so adorable. And then I would be like, "All right, we did the scene. Now go do your homework." Okay, right? So as a young kid, it was amazing to see that sense of herself and ability to direct, but at the same time, you know, then she had to be a kid and she had to go, you know, do her homework and eat and go to bed, you know, like, so, but lovely, just a lovely for me to experience with her. It was really fun.
Cool. You know what I was thinking to when I was reading too, I know your accents are really good, but for Bill and Ted and for Better Off Dead, did they bring this to make sure you're doing it right?
An
dialect coach, or like a French dialect coach or an English dialect coach?
Well,
sometimes they do that. So
when you do a dialect, you are responsible to work with someone to work on the dialect with you. The production company doesn't pay for that. Maybe with the old studios, MGM, they might have had someone on set who worked with dialects, but any actor who's doing it, they have to pay out of their own pocket.
Oh, okay. So I was thinking if Monique said something in French that wasn't a real word, you just made it up, and then they like, well, we need to put somebody that knows the right words so they can give you the right words.
Oh, look, can I tell you something? There was actually no French in Better Off Dead. I put all the real French in there because as a character, I would be like, if I got angry in my foreign language and I was from another country, I would be cursing in my language. Like I would not go into American. So all the real French I learned. So actors are very creative. I mean, most times you see actors, they're putting their own stuff in it as well. Aside from the dialogue and the story that has to move forward, I studied the dialect. I work with a coach, but I also, even working with a coach, if you talk, like for instance, if I was to do a German accent, so if I took like if I do a really good German accent, it could be very thick or thick. So you wouldn't understand me necessarily. So when you do a dialect, you got to pull back a little bit, enough for the audience to understand you. So you might do an incredibly authentic one, and like bravo if it's like if you're playing someone else, but you also have to consider that the audience has to understand you, and the dialect cannot get in the way of your emotion and what you're expressing. So it's fascinating, you know. So when I do a German accent, I try to do it not so heavy, because then it would be easier to understand instead of understand, right?
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Okay, here's a bonus question number one. If you could go back and change the ending out of one of your movies, which one would it be, and what ending would you change? Or what kind of ending would you have for it to change? Well, there's so many, but I'm just thinking Summer Girl, Virgin.
I feel like we're talking about this.
Yeah. Well, it was Summer Girl as well, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
He could have, Cindy could have ended up with Boswick, you know.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And never, nobody would never know what happened.
Yeah.
But that's one of them I was seeing if you would change the ending, because you know it's a good ending, but like, what if they shot an alternate? There's some movies from the '80s that actually have alternate endings, like Pretty in Pink. So I was just curious if you would want to change the ending now. I mean, thinking about it now, if you could.
Well, here's the thing: there would be no way we would be thinking about Last American Virgin if it did not have that ending. I mean, this was, you know, I don't know if anyone knows the film, so this is like a beginning of it, where this guy, if you don't know the film, he's he falls in love with me, but I wind up going out with his best friend and end
Yeah.
with his best friend at the end. It's a very sad ending. It's a very real ending. I actually really, I respect the ending of that. I'm going to answer this in two parts. One
Okay.
is I don't think I would change the ending, but I
Mhm.
would have made a sequel.
Oh,
And I would have done it now. And I would have had me as an adult working at like hot dog on a stick. My life is terrible. I married Rick and was abusive, and we have a terrible life, and we have kids, and we divorced, and now I have to take care of the kids. And Gary comes up to this hot dog stick, dressed to the nines. He is now a business, like a corporate guy, like he's a lawyer or whatever. He's like, he is to the nines. He's made it, and he sees me, and he asks me out, and we have a romance, and we get that moment which everybody wanted to see. That's what I would do. I would have had that moment where we see finally, Karen and Gary together. And then at the end, he dumps me.
oh. I was about to say Rick would shoot Gary.
Yeah,
you can have like that. Rick finds out, Rick shoots Gary.
Yeah, that's true. Like at the end, all bets are off,
Yeah.
But that would be what I would do with that. And then the only other change I would do is if it's Bill and Ted's at the end of the movie, I would have us be in the second Bill and Ted's and the third.
Or I mean, you didn't not the second one. Just bring him back and Face the Music.
Yeah, exactly. So, and even in a cameo. So anyway, that would have been fun. But other than that, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Nice, very good questions.
Well, you like to the final question. Here's the final bonus question for the day. Okay, so your return to the big screen. I mean, the really, really big screen from the 80s. And there's a choice for you to go into 3 franchises. Okay. So which franchise would you enter if they say, okay, we want you to come back. Here's your choices. The Star Wars universe, the Marvel universe, the DC universe, or the VUSQ universe.
That is so unfair because they are.
I could put you in all of them. I mean, you can play a mother of a superhero, or you could play a mentor of a superhero, or you could be Silent Bob's mom, or Jay's mom, or Dante's mom, or Dante's sister.
I love it.
Any of those. You could be a Jedi master.
Oh my God, would that be awesome?
Yeah.
I wanted to do some action too, so that's very exciting. Star Wars is great because it's like it's physical and action, and I think what's really cool about that situation would be to play certainly as an older woman, but also not like old, like very spry, and I'm very physical, and
you could play Obi-Wan's love interest.
Yeah, I mean, and I could, I'm very action oriented, and I kickbox and stuff. So it would be very cool.
Well, they have a whole litter of female Mandalorians too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I like
the fact you just pull out the mask. Hey, it's Monique.
Right. Bonjour.
And you have a French accent.
Yeah. That would be amazing. That'd be great. And then, I think that's a really cool thing. Also, I mean, superhero playing, I don't know, like maybe they create something new, but there must be. I would even place a villain, a witch, evil character too. So
the universes are so big in the franchise. I mean, tons of people see them on streaming, on Disney Plus, HBO Max, theaters. So,
well, if anyone wants to write it, I'm ready. That would be great. I like your thinking. It's big thinking, and it's exciting.
You're like one of the 80s babes, and the 80s are coming back, so why not bring everybody back that's from the 80s?
Exactly.
Especially Diane.
Love it.
Monique. Maybe there should be a sequel to Better Off Dead where, Monique and John's character, they run a baseball team.
I said to Savage, because Amanda said if somebody wrote a Better Off Dead, if they wrote it grown up, she would be in it. And I said, I would too. And so I asked Savage, and he's like, I'm going to think about that, because he, that would be a very cool thing to do, a Better Off Dead grown up. Curtis could be in it. I don't know if John would be in it, but we could always say that John fell off the K-12 and had an accident. The paper boy caught up with him. I don't know.
Yeah.
We could find something.
You're raising your guys' son, and he's he's doing this, having the same feelings as John's character.
Yeah.
You're like,
And of
you're,
course,
you're
Ricky
mentoring and coaxing him and said, no, it's not. Life's not always going to be like that. It's going to get better.
And Ricky runs the town. Ricky's the mayor or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks you for your time, Diane. This has been great. I mean,
You're welcome.
legendary.
Well,
I really appreciate you coming on Mad Bros Media.
I wanted to share a couple of things, so in case audiences want to know, please stay in touch with me on social media, Diane Franklin 80 on Twitter and Facebook. Go to the black and white, you'll see a group page, which has these 2 books on the picture, because my other one is filled up. So go there, but I do post new things. And one of the things I did, the Bundy movie, American Boogeyman, I'm going to put pictures from it, and just
I think there's a picture right now of you guys with your COVID masks on together, side by side. Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to be, but slowly as we get to even more and more cooler photos. And then also I did a movie called High Holiday, and that's going to come out, I think, this year. It's with Tom Arnold, Jennifer Tilly, who is a friend of mine who I love.
Oh, wow.
She and I did a TV show called Boone back in the day. Friends. And also Cloris Leachman is in it. And
the late Cloris Leachman.
And Sharon Sossaman is in it also. So that's supposed to come out. I have a cameo in that. And so yeah, there's other things that are coming out. So if you stay connected with me, then you'll hear it from me first.
Cool. And I'll post those links, and I'll post your Twitter links and your Facebook. And do you have a website as well?
Yes, DianeFranklin.com, and you can get my books there, but you can also get photos for signing photos. So
and your new book is going to be there, right, on the site, so they can buy it.
And that's the other thing. My
Plus, they can buy the original one. This is a great one to have. So. And
I sign them at conventions too. So
I got mine signed, so you should. If you see her at a convention, get one.
You buy it, and I'll sign it for free.
Yeah.
Either one. So if you buy it, I sign it. So,
cool.
But anyway, you're so lovely. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you, Diane. It's always been an honor to have you and meet you. Because like I said, I've watched all your movies. Summer Girl. It's funny. I was telling David. We interviewed Barry Bostwick twice. We never even talked about Summer Girl. I was like, why didn't we talk about Summer Girl?
Oh yeah, people. If you haven't seen Summer Girl, I actually got almost. I was up for being nominated for an Emmy for that. That was how good it was. I mean. And Diane Lane originally was supposed to do that part, and she turned it down.
Wow.
And then I got it. And it was a very interesting thing, because again, my curly hair was not the beach girl, but they took a leap of faith and they went. And so I play a beach girl with dark curly hair. Anyway, but very cool movie. I'm very evil. And
I have to mention too, you're not the only one with dark hair. Boswick doesn't have a string of white hair in that movie. It's all dark.
And Kim Darby, dark hair.
Yeah, Kim Darby, yes.
Yeah,
it was also better off dead with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was she nicer to you in the Better Off Dead? Well, she's not going to attack me in this movie. I'm pretty sure you guys.
We were really happy that we got to like each other.
Yeah.
When we had that dinner with French bread, French fries, that was much better.
Is that salad with French dressing? Was that French dressing she had? Yeah, French dressing.
Yeah, Monique. That was Mrs. Smith. So it was really fun. Well, I hope I helped bring back some fun memories for people, and just stay excellent to each other. That's all I have to say, and safe and healthy.
Yep. Cool.
All right.
All right. Thank you. I was going to call you Monique. Thank you, Diane.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. This has been Patrick with the Mad Bros Media Zoom show on podcast, and check us out on the Mad Bros Media Zoom podcast with the full extension of this interview. Till then, this has been Patrick with Diane Franklin on the Mad Bros Media Zoom show.